So, what's going on, everybody? I put out a short this morning about potential of trading Jasson Dominguez, and it seems to have outraged some people. So that's why I titled this "Liking Spencer Jones is not equal hating Jasson Dominguez," because it doesn't. And here are a couple of things to point out. Okay, Jasson Dominguez, obviously, he was their most probably highly regarded, highly touted international signing and probably ever. Nosebleed, what's going on? Good morning. But unfortunately, whether it's injuries or just lackluster play in certain times, and this is all. I have to defend Jasson Dominguez too here because he's been given this superstar title by I don't know who, beat writers, content creators, blah blah blah, right? And that's an unfair expectation to place upon him, right? Because then if he doesn't perform to that, some of those people are going to call him a bust, and I don't think that's fair either. But with that being said, his career minor league stats, okay, career 274 batting average, 373 OPS, 444 slugging, OPS of 816. Okay, decent. At no level in the minors, morning, Ken. What do you know? At no level in the minors has Jasson Dominguez put forth superstar stats, right? He's been good, but superstar I think is a little premature. And again, I think it's an unfair label to place upon him. And for those that know me, know that I like players, but I like the team better. And this to me is an area where the Yankees have an opportunity to get better. Why do I bring up Spencer Jones? Despite his K rate, okay, which is gradually getting better, and offensively he's improving as he's going up in the system, but he profiles as an elite defensive center fielder who also puts up 30-plus home runs and steals 30 bags. Okay, that is a rare skill set. That's an Ellie De La Cruz type skill set that the Yankees have in-house, right? There's a lot of talk right now about Byron Buxton. He's an elite defensive center fielder, but he also costs $15 million a year on a contract, and he also gets hurt quite a bit. Spencer Jones we have in-house for pennies on the dollar. So why go after Buxton when we have Spencer Jones, right? And I understand it's appealing to look at his 35 home runs and all that stuff from last year. I get it, right? But at the same time, token, we have a guy here, and the guys that we've talked about in free agency, whether it's Kyle Tucker or Cody Bellinger or even trade Stephen Kwan, all those guys profile better, even Stephen Kwan, as a corner outfielder, right? Stephen Kwan is a good defensive center field, and he's an elite defensive center field in left field. Cody Bellinger is elite in left field, decent in center. Tucker's never played center. His best defensive position is right field. We have Aaron Judge. I'm not moving Aaron Judge for Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker, if he came here, would have to play left field until Aaron Judge transitions to DH. Then you can talk Kyle Tucker can take right field, right? So all those guys would be better profile in left field, meaning we need a really good player in center field. We have one here in Spencer Jones. And me mentioning him does not mean I hate Jasson Dominguez, despite what a lot of people say. Okay? Look, if the Yankees keep Dominguez and he plays well, great. I'm happy. I am. But we have Kevin, what's going on? Wink. But the Yankees have an opportunity here to address other needs. And when you have a player like Jasson Dominguez, and again, I'll say this too, and fans are entitled to be hard on Austin Wells, Anthony Volpe, and so on and so forth, right? But why are we not applying the same standard to Jasson Dominguez? It's got to be fair across the board, right? There's no excuses to that. It's not even debatable. It's got to be fair across the board. We have to be just as hard on Dominguez as we are on everybody else, right? Look what happened to Anthony Volpe this year. Obviously he was playing hurt for a good amount of the year. Who knows how long, but What was he criticized most for? His inept defensive play, right? He was crucified for it. But Jasson Dominguez was no less inept in an outfielder defensively. But he was given a get out of jail free card. Why? Why? Right? That's my question, is why? It's okay to be critical of players, but why are we not leveling the same playing field across the board for everybody? It's only fair. Okay? And again, I even took this position a bunch of years ago with Aaron Judge before he signed that long-term deal with the Yankees. I said, Judge, he's a stud player, but if the Yankees weren't planning on re-signing him, then it might have made sense. It made sense to trade him for a haul. I'm glad that they didn't. I'm glad he stayed, right? But at the same time, those are the types of decisions that would have to be made, right? There was nothing. It was a nothing burger yesterday with Cashman. Okay. The fact of the matter is, he knows. Excuse me. He knows more about the Yankees than we do. He knows more about the departments and inner workings than we do, right? And I don't know what their plan is with analytics. And so, yes, there are components we can be frustrated with analytics. I get it, but he blocks out the noise. He's not going to give people sound bites to run with, because that's exactly what happens. You say one thing, people run with it in 10 different directions, and 9 of the directions aren't even true, right? But this is what people do. Just like yesterday, right? Yesterday, people ran with this clickbait stuff on Paul Skeens. He wants to be traded to the Yankees. Everybody, well, not everybody, almost everybody ran with it. Created channels, YouTube. It was all over Twitter, all over YouTube, bunch of YouTube channels. And then he wound up, and congratulations to Paul Skeens, by the way, for winning the Cy Young Award yesterday. But he refuted it last night. So people are like desperate to be the first person to report on something that wound up not even being true. Okay? We can criticize Dominguez all we want in his playing. Dominguez had the same amount of playing time as Trent Grisham did. And Grisham outperformed him by 2 miles. It is an apples to apples, unfortunately, in this situation. Right? And Dominguez has had, unfortunately for him also, he's had injuries. He's been up in the majors for 3 years now. 3. Okay? People want Spencer Jones gone, and he hasn't even had a taste in the majors. Dominguez has been up here for 3 years now. And has never materialized defensively. And he's been pretty adequate, well, from the lefty side offensively. Terrible on the right-handed side. So it's just the way that it is. And we have to apply the standard at the major league level, right? If we're going to pound Volpe, want Volpe thrown to the wolves, we have to apply the same standard to Jasson Dominguez. Okay? And not a victim of Grisham's stellar year. I wouldn't play the victim. He had an opportunity to outperform everybody in the outfield. He did none of that. He didn't play well enough to justify sitting anybody. He didn't outperform Cody Bellinger either. He had his chances, right? And at the major league level, you have to earn your spot. And like I said, I like the kid, and I have to disagree too with some people saying he's an immature player. I haven't seen any of that. I can't corroborate that. He's carried himself like a pro, okay, and to his defense, and he's done everything the Yankees have asked him to do. Quietly, he has a good head on his shoulder. He's a good kid, right? And that's the fact of the matter is. That's the fact of the matter, right? So, well, that's exactly. He never earned his spot, and he can do better somewhere else. This is why I'm proposing a trade to a team. And I proposed 2 trades today, like to the Angels for Reed Detmers. Reed Detmers has 3 controllable years. Or to the Rockies for Seth Halverson, right? He has 5 controllable years. We're not going to get Mason Miller for Jasson Dominguez, right? We're not. We can get controllable reliever. And I mentioned this morning too. Even John Morosi reported yesterday, a bunch of GM, he's at the GM meetings, a bunch of GMs expressed to him that they're looking for a controllable player who can be an everyday outfielder. Well, that's exactly what Dominguez can do for other teams. right? So I think he's got decent trade value. Okay, right? This is not a comparison to Volpe. The fact of the matter is, too, is Volpe had nobody that could play in his behalf until Caballero came along, right? And then when he came along, he sat Volpe quite a bit. But it has nothing to do with Volpe. And again, this is like I said, look at the title of this video. Liking Spencer Jones is not equal hating Dominguez. That doesn't mean we have to tie Volpe into this, right? What's the point? My MVP, I do think at the end of the day, I think Judge is going to win, but it's not going to be unanimous, right? Cabby sat well, and Volpe also played well in the postseason, so he came back first last. So I think Caballero is going to get a more robust shot because when they operated on Volpe's shoulder, it was more extensive damage than the MRI revealed. So, and sometimes that happens. So he's going to be out for I think longer than we thought. So it's good to have Caballero. Okay. Yeah, he actually did first last. He played pretty decent in the postseason. Right. Hayden Knight, yeah, like I said, I think Judge wins, but not unanimously. Cal Raleigh will get some MVP votes, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. Okay. Who wasn't terrible against the Jays first last? We can't put that on Volpe. The Jays shut us down, period. Okay. I'm hearing rumblings that they're looking to move Ascar in a trade. So we'll see. We'll wait until it happens. Like, I hope Judge wins. I really do. So, but I'm not gonna hold my breath until we'll see what happens. You never know with these things. These beat writers can be finicky, so it is what it is. But back to the subject here again. That's why I proposed trades for Dominguez, because it's an opportunity for what? To get a controllable reliever back, right? Yankees need multiple relievers, right? Not every one of them they bring in needs to be in free agency, needs to be expensive. This is an opportunity to recoup a controllable reliever on the cheap to make it easier to reallocate those financial resources to either get another reliever or make it easier to try to get Imai and Okamoto from Japan. Anything that it's going to make it easier to try to add players is something I'm for, right? So that's, yeah, we know Cabby was the better option against, well, against certain pitchers from the Jays, but he's not the better option against for every pitcher. We don't know that. Okay. Well, that's what I'm saying, RC, right? Dominguez, whatever value we can capitalize on him right now, because the fact is, he's not a superstar. You want a young superstar? Look at Jackson Merrill from the Padres. Look at some of these guys, right? Some of these young, absolute stud players. And like I said, I think it's unfair that Dominguez was bestowed this title, that he's the next Mickey Mantle, the next Mike Trout. Like, I don't know why people did that. It's unfair to him. It's unfair to anybody, right? But we have an option here, and he is a better option in center field, Spencer Jones. So that's why I'm proposing these trades. And if you can get value back from Dominguez, then he gets an opportunity to play full-time somewhere else, but you're also extracting value in a position that we need, right? I would move Dominguez for Kwan, but not Jones. If you can get Kwan for left field, then I will put him in left field. And then you have your leadoff hitter and speed and defensive on-base percentage guy. In left field, you got your speed and your power in center field, both of whom are good defenders. But Kwan also profiles better defensively in left field than he does center field. That's why, to me, Spencer Jones has to be the center fielder. I don't want Luis Robert Jr. Okay, I don't. Talented player, but can't stay healthy. Right, unfortunately. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, what's the balance? Like, if whether it's Bellinger or Tucker or Quan in left, Jones has to be in center, right? And how else do you maneuver this stuff, right? I like Byron Buxton too. He's cheaper than Luis Robert, but he also gets hurt sometimes too. But why go after Brian Buxton for $15 million a year when we have Spencer Jones for pennies on the dollar? Byron Buxton would make it harder for the Yankees to add other players financially, right? And there's no way in the world I'm trading Spencer Jones for Byron Buxton. So I understand he's got 35 home runs, tantalizing production, but we had that already for a bunch of guys, right? Alignment of the position players is going to be a key factor in how do we put these guys in a lineup. Quan is your prototypical leadoff hitter. That's why I talk about Brendan Dunneman too as an option too for the infield, who could play multiple positions, and the outfield as well as a potential leadoff hitter or number two hitter too, right? He's a great fit for this team because he's an absolute gamer. He does a lot of the little things well. Okay, he's a good defender. He's got controllable years, and again, this is the type of player that the Blue Jays were infested with, that the Dodgers were infested with, right? Gamers, solid players across the board who work the counts. Contact hitters work the count, right? What happens with contact hitters? They get ahead in counts. What's that mean? That puts the pitchers behind counts. Then the pitchers have to throw the ball in the zone more often. Advantage hitter, right? Put the ball in play. Tee up the situation for guys like Aaron Judge and the rest of them. Tee it up. I'd rather Judge hit 3-run home runs than solo home runs, right? No. Bo's not happening first last. Bo doesn't make any sense here at all. He really doesn't, unless he's going to go to second base, where he's probably the best defensive position for him. But we're not trading Jazz Chisholm. So where would Bo go this year? That's the question. But Bellinger also makes it easier to get Okamoto. Tucker does not. Right? We'll see. But we'll see what happens. Like if Bellinger's going to sign elsewhere, then you try to get Quan, and then you put Spencer Jones, and then you can really allocate your resources to try to get Okamoto and Imai. Right? You try to get as many versatile players as you possibly can. So that's just and again, I would not bestow the superstar label on Spencer Jones either. I would give him time too. But the fact of the matter is, if you look up and through the minor league systems and his offensive stats, at no point has Jasson Dominguez put forth superstar stats at any level of the minors. Jones has multiple times already. Okay? And he profiles defensively as an elite outfielder. That's another advantage for Jones. Okay? And the reason I like Okamoto too is you get Jones who's a lefty, you can get Okamoto who's a righty. It kind of balances out the lineup too. I don't want to have only lefty guys here. Bo is a righty, but again, how do you fit Bo is the question. And he's not a good defender. He doesn't have really good range either. That's why his best option would be second base, where he can create the least amount of damage defensively, right? But what do you do with Jazz? Jazz is a 30-30 guy. So how do you make that work? It could be a timing thing with Bo too. But we need right-handed contact bats here. That's why and again, no, I don't think they're getting Bo either. This is where moving Dominguez makes sense, right? And again, like if he stays, I hope he plays well. I hope he gets a shot. But if this is where the team can improve in areas where they're not really improving, right? But I would rather take Jones over Buxton. Buxton's good, but he can't. He has a hard time staying healthy, and he's on a contract that pays him $15 million a year. So we have a guy. Yeah, Christian. We have a guy who can do what Buxton does already in Spencer Jones for pennies on the dollar. So, people. I mean, I know that's the popular topic today. Byron Buxton. Like yesterday was Paul Skeens, right? I can't see Neto being moved from the Angels. I really can't. But it would take um, Dominguez and probably Lombard. If Buxton's willing to move to left field, okay, and if Bellinger doesn't sign here and Tucker doesn't sign here, and then they don't go after Quan, then maybe Buxton becomes an option then. But I'm not trading. There's not a scenario in the world where I'm trading Spencer Jones to the Twins for Byron Buxton. What was proposed yesterday, which is insanity. Right? The problem with both playing shortstop is we have George Lombard, who's going to be, probably ready in 2027, and we've drafted Dax Kilby, who profiles higher than George Lombard does already. Right? And then you got Keenan Kent, the guy that we've drafted like 6 shortstops in the last 2 years in the high rounds, and then we're linked to the #1 international free agent, Wandy Assagen, too. Now, again, that might change. Yankees fired their international scouting director yesterday. So that's the problem too with Buxton. He's been injury prone. Right now we need consistency from players. We need healthy players, right? Neto would not be cheap. I think Jazz has gone after this shit. I think he gets a QO and then he leaves. Right. So, but Bo's not an upgraded shortstop. That's the problem. He's good with his bat, yes. I'd be shocked if they traded Jazz Chisholm. I really would be. I really would be. But this is like proposing a Jasson Dominguez trade opens up avenues for the Yankees, right? So this is where the Yankees can improve, especially in the bullpen. They're gonna most likely lose Weaver and Williams, and they're gonna non-tender probably 4 or 5 relievers next week. So we're gonna need to stock up in relief. So yeah, I mean, if you get Jazz to play well, offer him a QO and then let him walk. If you don't plan on extending him, then you let him walk and give him a QO. Just like Trent Grisham was very likely almost 90 to 95% lock to him rejecting the QO next week. The decisions have to be made by, I think, Tuesday, the 18th, as to whether accept or decline the QO. But again, I wanted to make this clear that me liking Spencer Jones does not mean I hate Jasson Dominguez. So many people say that, and people, if that upsets you, okay, fine. If people want to unsubscribe to the channel, fine. That's okay. But again, I think it's important to apply the same standard for everybody across the board. Right? No. Well, that's the other question too, William. Why would they not extend Jazz? Who's a better option than Jazz? Unless you're very confident that Lombard would be better or Dax Kilby would be better, that's probably the scenario which they might not extend Jazz. Right? But he's young, he's athletic, plays well, he can hit. So, I mean, that's the key. He does what the Yankees need him to do. But again, if I had to choose someone over Jazz, it wouldn't be Bo. It would be Brandon Donovan. So, but I mean, look, Jazz does have some growing up to do. I get that. I think we can all agree on that. But he is a 30-30 guy. And if you look at his past 162 games, like full season performance, he's a 40-40 guy. So that's not an easy thing to replace. Right? Yeah. He is a top 5 second baseman. Yeah, he is. So, and he's young. What is he, 27? Maybe 28, something like that. He's young. So, and maybe they're not gonna bring in somebody like Neto because they think George Lombard can take over at shortstop right after this year. I mean, they have 3 years of non-tender availability when it comes to Anthony Volpe. So if you non-tender a player, you're not required to pay their contract. And this only happens in arbitration. Once you sign a free agent contract, it's completely different. All that money's guaranteed no matter what. So Beagle, decent weather in Florida. It's like 45 here. Chilly. What? And well, I mean, I think Bichette's gonna. My guess, I'm leaning towards him going back to the Blue Jays, but I'm gonna keep my eye out on the Braves too. Right, so at the end of the day, what's going to make the Yankees better is the topic that matters most to me. And I also understand that the desire to keep Dominguez and play him. Look, the guy's been hyped, especially by content creators on YouTube and beat writers, as like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And a lot of folks are not going to admit that that's not the case. They don't want to own that, and it's okay to own it. It's okay, right? Just look at what we have. I think Spencer Jones has a higher ceiling, especially in the outfield. That's obvious in the outfield. So, but again, yeah, until we get the results of qualifying offers and non-tender tender, nothing much is going to happen. That's why I'm not really paying too much attention into why people were so outraged yesterday at Brian Cashman. Like, did folks actually think he was going to give folks sound bites? Like, oh my God, he said. They're like, no. No matter what he gives you, people are going to run it and take it into a different direction. This is what they do all the time, right? So, it was a winnable World Series, but the Blue Jays didn't win. So, it is what it is. They've got to bring players back. I mean, the Dodgers are probably going to try to beef up the bullpen, try to add an outfielder. And then beyond that, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not guaranteeing them a 3P yet. Depends on what the other teams do. And teams, I mean, some teams got to base their offseason on how can we get past the Dodgers, right? In the National League. Some teams will base their offseason on that. I think Kershaw will be gone. Who else? I got to go back and look and see. But the Dodgers will be aggressive as they always are. As they always are. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, William. We did start the season with 60% of our rotation out. Couple of relievers out. Oswaldo Cabrera out. Which is why, and we still tied the Jays for the best record in the American League altogether. Which is why I'm surprised that that Aaron Boone received no votes for Manager of the Year, and that John Schneider from Blue Jays didn't win. I think he should have won. And as much as I like Stephen Vogt from Guardians, the Jays should have won that Manager of the Year, John Schneider. So I'm surprised that he did not win. And I was surprised that Aaron Boone did not receive a single vote for Manager of the Year. Wow, where do I think Tucker lands? Well, I had predicted him initially to the Yankees, but I'm going to say Yankees or Dodgers still. Bregman I hard pass on Bregman. He's not a fit here. Am I? Yes, I'm for signing Am I think signing Am would be a good idea for the Yankees. Mm-hmm. And I hope they get signed. He's posting window officially starts next Wednesday, the 19th. So, then he'll have 45 days to negotiate, find his team and negotiate terms. So, 45 days. And and what I did hear also from someone in MPB in Japan that he's looking to go to a team that does not have an existing Japanese star. If that's the case, then you can rule out the Dodgers. But we'll see. Right? Yeah. I mean, if they went Dominguez and Jones and Judge in the outfield, I'd be surprised. But doesn't mean I wouldn't root for them. But I'd be surprised. I really would. Because this is a win now team. They need to do whatever they can to put themselves in a position to win. And that's a lot of production sacrifice going from Bellinger and Grisham to Dominguez and Jones. You're gonna hope for a miracle there. Hope for a lot of offensive production from those guys. I'm not sure that'll be a fair expectation to have just yet. Right? But yeah, I appreciate you guys coming on. Anybody else have any questions before I wrap this up? I just wanted to get out here and just kind of clarify my positions because again, people got upset at me this morning for offering Jasson Dominguez in a trade for pitchers, for a pitcher or whatever. Mm-hmm. People got pretty angry at me. Which is okay too. Well, listen, I pointed this out a couple weeks ago, First Last. I'm glad you brought this up too. Not only are we having a delayed start from Cole and Rodon, right? But Max Fried, Will Warren, and Cam Schlittler are also coming off career highs in workloads and innings pitched. So there's an increased risk for injury for them as well, which is why getting a guy like Amai makes so much sense for the rotation. Get another starter, get insurance here, right? And I would rather sign Amai than try to trade for someone like Joe Ryan, who we will not be able to get for just Jasson Dominguez. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Exactly, First Line. Exactly. I think so too, Kevin. I think Rice is going to get an opportunity to play first. I mean, TJ Rumfield is someone I've been talking about with Ken from The Ugly Truth as another option first base. He's a more prototypical first baseman, so he can be a guy here as well. But they have to protect him from the Rule 5 dread. They have to put him on the 40 to protect him from the Rule 5 draft. And that has to happen, by the middle of next week. Even though Rule 5 draft is the second last day, or the last day of the winter meetings, the deadline to get these guys on the 40-man is way before that. I'm not trading Elmer Rodriguez Cruz. Not for Joe Ryan. What does Ryan have? A year and a half or 2 years of control left? Hill and Dominguez. If you can get Ryan for Hill and Dominguez, that's something I would consider. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm not trading either one of those guys for Joe Ryan. I like Joe Ryan, but he's not Paul Skeens. Right? He'll get a shot to win it outright from in spring training, but again, I still would bring in somebody regardless. That way you're not having to throw him to the wolves right away. Yep. And again, we'll give the rotation some depth. And I brought up other guys recently, like Nick Martinez from the Reds. He has an opportunity. He's a swing guy, right? An affordable swing guy that can play rotation and be in the pen as well. Just like Michael King, but King is attached to a qualifying offer. I don't think they're going to sign anybody attached to a qualifying offer that would be no more than number 4 starter here. Just doesn't make any sense, right? Doesn't make any sense at all. But any other questions, folks, before we wrap this up? Thank you all for joining me. I appreciate you for coming. And stay tuned. Tonight, I'll be putting out the results for the MVP. Hopefully, it's Aaron Judge, baby. Hopefully, it's Aaron Judge. And my guess, if it is Judge, it's going to be Judge and Ohtani. Even though I think Kyle Schwarber should win it over Ohtani, I have a feeling it's probably going to be Ohtani. But you never know. Never know. So it could be someone else for all we know. But stay tuned, gang. I'll get the MVP news out to you today. Anything else that happens, you'll be getting here too. So appreciate you. Peace and love, gang. You are the best. And I'll catch you next time.